This is Black History Unlocked, the home of forgotten black geniuses, warriors, inventors, and visionaries. Every week, we bring you a new story that rewrites everything you thought you knew. Don't miss out. Subscribe, like, and share to keep these stories alive. In the darkness of an American night in 1818, a child was born who was never meant to read, never meant to speak freely, never meant to dream. He was born into chains, into silence, into a world where his life was valued less than a coin. Yet this same child would one day walk into the White House, stand face to face with presidents, write words that shook the world, and become the most powerful voice for freedom the country had ever heard. His name was Frederick Douglass. This is his story, not the short version you learned in school, but the full epic journey of a boy who defied slavery, rewrote destiny, and transformed a nation with nothing but his mind, his courage, and the fire in his voice. Frederick Douglass was born Frederick Bailey on a plantation in Talbot County, Maryland. He never knew his birthday. He barely knew his mother. He never knew his father, though the whispers said he was a white man, perhaps even the plantation owner. From the moment he opened his eyes, the world told him, "You are property, you will never be anything more." His earliest memories were not of toys or laughter, but of chains, hunger, and the cries of others. As a young boy, Frederick watched enslaved men whipped until their backs opened like torn cloth, watched women dragged by their hair, watched lives broken like twigs under boots. He learned early, slavery was not just labor, it was the crushing of the human spirit. Yet inside him, the spirit refused to die. When Frederick was about 8 years old, he was sent to Baltimore to live with the Auld family. This changed everything. The mistress of the house, Sophia Auld, had never owned slaves before. She treated Frederick kindly. She even did the unthinkable. She began teaching him to read. Just simple letters at first, A, B, C. But when her husband Hugh Auld discovered this, he exploded in fury. He shouted, "You cannot teach him to read. If he learns to read, he will become unmanageable, and he will desire freedom." Frederick heard every word, and in that rage-filled outburst, something clicked in his mind. He knew, at that moment, with absolute clarity, reading was the path to freedom, knowledge was the weapon they feared. From then on, he taught himself in secret, newspapers, discarded books, anything he could find. He traded bread with poor white boys in exchange for reading lessons. He studied every spare moment. He read about ideas, countries, politics, and freedom. Every page was a key. Every word was a spark. Frederick Douglass was building a mind that no chains could hold. At age 16, Frederick was sent to a notorious slave breaker, Edward Covey. Covey's mission was simple: turn rebellious young slaves into obedient beasts. He whipped Frederick weekly, starved him, worked him from dawn to night. But one day, something inside Frederick snapped. After another brutal beating, Frederick rose from the ground, bleeding, breathless. And he fought back. For 2 hours, Covey and Frederick wrestled, struggled, locked in a violent battle of wills. In the end, Covey stepped away, defeated. He never touched Frederick again, Douglass later said. This battle was the turning point of my life. It rekindled the few expiring embers of freedom and revived within me a sense of my own manhood. He was still enslaved, but mentally, spiritually, courageously, he was already free. The desire for freedom consumed him. Frederick planned his escape many times, but each attempt ended in failure or betrayal. Still, he refused to give up. Finally, in 1838, at age 20, he made his move. Disguised as a sailor, carrying borrowed papers, he boarded a northbound train. Every second felt like death creeping behind him. Every glance from a white passenger felt like a trap. But the train surged forward and forward. And finally, the conductor announced, "You are now in the state of Pennsylvania, free soil." Frederick Douglass took his first breath as a free man, he later said. "I felt as one might feel upon escape from a den of hungry lions." He continued north to New York, then to Massachusetts. He chose a new name, Frederick Douglass. The boy born in chains had remade himself. Frederick Douglass began attending abolitionist meetings, listening to anti-slavery speeches. One day, the famous abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison spotted him in the crowd and asked him to speak. Douglass hesitated, but then stepped forward. He told his life story plainly, powerfully, truthfully. The audience froze, some cried, some trembled. His voice, deep, controlled, thunderous, carried the weight of millions. From that day on, Douglass became the single most powerful voice of the abolitionist movement. He traveled across the North, filled halls to bursting, turned silence into fury, turned listeners into fighters. But his fame came with danger. Slave catchers hunted him. Southern newspapers placed a price on his head. So Douglass fled to England for safety. There, he spoke to packed rooms and stunned Europeans who could not believe America still kept humans in bondage. His supporters in Britain raised money and purchased his freedom, making him legally a free man. He had escaped slavery, and now slavery no longer had any legal claim on him. In 1845, Douglass published his first autobiography, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. It became a bestseller across the world. His writing was not just storytelling. It was a blade that cut deep into the heart of slavery. He wrote more autobiographies, each more powerful than the last. He founded newspapers, wrote speeches, fought for women's rights, fought against racism in the North, fought for dignity everywhere. He proved something revolutionary. A former slave could not only read, he could outthink and outwrite the most educated men in America. When the Civil War began, Frederick Douglass pushed relentlessly for one goal: let black men fight. He believed he who would be free must strike the blow. Lincoln hesitated at first, but Douglass kept pushing, speaking, writing, meeting leaders. Finally, the Union opened its ranks, and thousands of black soldiers joined the fight. Douglass met Abraham Lincoln multiple times, not as a servant, not as a petitioner, But as an equal, Lincoln asked for his advice, listened to him, respected him. After the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln declared, "Douglass is the most meritorious man of the nation, from a slave to a presidential advisor." After slavery was abolished, many believed the struggle was over. Douglass knew better. He fought for voting rights, equal education, women's rights, land for freed slaves, protection from racial violence. He gave speeches across the country. He held government positions, including U.S. Marshal and Ambassador. Even in old age, his voice remained a thunderstorm. Once, after speaking 4 hours, a young man asked him, "Mr. Douglass, what should we do now?" Douglass replied, "Agitate, agitate, agitate." On February 20, 1895, after attending a women's rights meeting, Frederick Douglass returned home. He was speaking with his wife when he suddenly collapsed. The great voice fell silent forever. He was 77, but his legacy, his fire, his words did not die. Even today, every speech demanding justice, every protest against oppression, every fight for dignity, echoes the voice of the boy born in chains, who rose to become a giant. Frederick Douglass didn't escape slavery because he was lucky. He escaped because he refused to accept the world as it was. He refused silence. He refused obedience. He refused to stay in the place society built for him. His story is not just history, it is a message. No matter where you begin, no one can stop where you're destined to go. Not if you dare to learn. Not if you dare to speak. Not if you dare to fight. Frederick Douglass was born a slave, but he died the voice of a nation.
Born into slavery, Frederick Douglass became one of the most powerful voices for freedom in American history. Through courage, intelligence, and fearless speeches, he fought against slavery and inspired millions to demand equality and justice.